is the Las Vegas Sportsline, presented by the Westgate Las Vegas, home of the world's largest race and sports book and the Super Contest.
Money won is twice as sweet as money earned.
Presented by WagerTalk.com.
Yes, we are here. It is the Tuesday edition of the Las Vegas Sportsline. It's brought to you by Superbook USA. Jeff Sherman will be joining us a little bit. Get us a lot of vital behind-the-counter info. We'll talk NBA, NFL, college football. The odds were changing on the futures during the game last night. They were, literally. I had a change in favorites for next year. Lots of stuff to go over with Jeff, including the Sony Open. His golfers PGA is back, and Jeff, of course, publishes golfodds.com. So lots of good stuff on that. Marco DAngelo is here. I'm Dave Cokin. Ari Platinum is producing the show, and we have a definitive national champion. This was a no doubt about it. Clemson is number one.
I'll tell you, Dave, we were talking right before we went on air. It was just, you know what kind of whooping from start to finish. But as I'm watching the game, what really amazed me, and caught me by surprise, was the team speed of Clemson.
I'm telling you.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence was putting the ball right where he needed to put it for the receivers.
He's Peyton Manning.
But
he is. He's a young Peyton Manning.
A step and a half, and the guys are gone. I just couldn't believe the difference in speed. And for Alabama, we talked about the game plan as well. For the first time, you looked at the sidelines, and they keep putting the camera on Nick Saban. He wasn't a happy camper, and he had no answer.
I mean, everything went wrong for them. Including the disastrous fake field goal, which everybody knew was coming. And that's the one. That's the only one I really find fault with Saban on. It's like, we all know you're going to fake here, which means it's not a fake. Right. So call timeout and put Tua back on the field, because you got to go in that situation.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. But Clemson's game plan, they came out, they didn't take their foot off the gas. Nope. Shocked of anything that defense. We talked about them being the difference. For me, in my handicap, that was the difference for me, was the Clemson defense. I thought they were the real deal. I never in a million years would have thought they would have shut Alabama out in the second half.
Venables did a great job of adjusting on the fly early, and it really paid off. I mean, if you want to get the 3 stars for Clemson last night, it's Lawrence, Ross, and Venables.
Yeah.
He was brilliant.
How about the catches, though, of Ross?
Oh. Listen, and these two are freshmen.
Yeah. I mean,
good luck playing that team.
Was there, I'm looking at, I was with, Ralph Michaels last night and Brad Powers. We were watching the game, and I'm commenting, like, the Clemson receivers, they're not even catching anything to the body. Everything was just out of this, right out of the air with unbelievable.
Ross looked like a tall version of Odell Beckham.
He did for sure.
I mean, not for nothing, but the 2021 draft, you might have been looking at the first 2 players picked in Lawrence and Ross, because they're both franchise players.
Yeah, it's going to be that year leading into Trevor Lawrence. There's teams that are going to need a quarterback.
Stockpiling those draft choices, Raiders.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be fun to watch the tank job for the number one pick there. But Clemson moving forward, you talked about the odds. They lose a lot on that defense going to next year. So
okay, well, guess what?
The offense is going to be real good.
More guys coming back. Clemson and Alabama are so far ahead of the rest of the pack right now. It's silly. I mean, Georgia's probably the top of the next level.
Right.
But there's a pretty good gap between Alabama, Clemson, and the rest.
Do we owe Notre Dame any kind of apology that we really ripped them?
I didn't.
The media, because everybody likes it.
They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They look. If you pay attention to what these guys on TV are talking about, then you know nothing, because they know nothing. Okay, Notre Dame deserved to be in the top in the playoffs.
Right.
Period. There was never a point where they didn't. They won all their games. They beat 9 bowl eligible teams. They beat 2 top 25 teams. They didn't play any FCS teams. They played an FBS game. They earned their way in. They just lost to a better team.
Yeah. That weekend, you saw Twitter that, how everybody was just crucifying them. And
yeah, because they lost the game badly, and people don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. I can argue this. I had Notre Dame 7th in my rankings.
Okay.
But the fact is, those are power rankings, and that's not how you decide who gets in the playoffs.
They
won all their games.
Exactly.
Okay, and they weren't playing the Central Florida schedule. They were playing legit teams, some of whom had disappointing seasons, but it's not Notre Dame's fault that USC sucked.
No.
Okay? I mean, they had a
They're
good
on their
paper.
schedule every
Right.
single year.
All right, let's look at some of tonight's games. Then we'll bring in Jeff Sherman, and we will begin our Tuesday MJ Christensen 4-4. Right.
1, 2, 3 into the 4.
Put them fours up. Put the fours up, I said. Do it right now.
Tonight's action is just around the bend, and the guys want to get your night off to a great start.
4.
It's the Las Vegas Sports Line's 4 at 4.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Unbelievable.
All right, we have a mix of two college basketball games, an NBA matchup, and our local hockey team. We have both local teams in action tonight. The Rangers and Golden Knights is a rather lopsided odds, so he put that in the 4 at 4. We'll save UNLV New Mexico for the marquee matchup. But we begin with Maryland and Minnesota, and this is one of those pivotal early season Big Ten matchups that's really important to these two teams because neither one of them is going to win the league. So all these games like this are really going to matter in terms of attracting at-large attention.
Absolutely. This is the old build the resume time. Yep. And you look at this one, Minnesota's coming off of a big win at Wisconsin in their last game. They're 6 wins in a row now, Dave. They're just 2-4 against the spread, albeit they were big favorites in a lot of those games.
They're winning the games, which is all that matters as far as the resume is concerned.
Absolutely. They're playing a Maryland team, though, that likes to go up and down the floor. This is different contrasting styles for these two teams. Maryland's going to want to go at a higher tempo. I actually think Maryland's the better team. I think they should be the favorite here, maybe one. The fact that I'm getting points with them, I think a little bit too much stock going into the Wisconsin win for Minnesota. And I'll give you a stat on Minnesota. The last 2 seasons, Minnesota, whenever they cover the spread, they don't put streaks together. They're 4-12 against the spread and 0-3 already this season in that situation. I got Maryland by 3 in this one, so that puts me grabbing them with the points.
It wasn't enough for me. I agree with you on the side. I had Maryland, I believe, 1 and change on my projections. They're getting 1.5 or 2 it went to. So it's a slight false favorite on Minnesota, but it wasn't enough to attract me to the window. I'm looking for bigger variables or bigger variations from the spread as far as my actual plays are concerned, which is why I'm putting together small cards.
But very successful ones.
Well, yeah, but when I set out my leans, Maryland was definitely on the list. So we'll see what happens in that one. Iowa State and Baylor, I did not come up with a play in this game. It looks like there might be some respected money on Baylor, but not an overwhelming amount. So it's not really a pros versus Joes or anything like that. What it is a pretty good matchup between a solid Iowa State team, but here we go. And I know where you're going to end up with this because, it doesn't mean you play all of these, but you are very aware of situational advantages or disadvantages. And Iowa State would fall into the situational disadvantage category tonight.
Oh, absolutely. They're coming off playing Kansas, beating Kansas.
Beating them up.
And so big win for them. Now they got to turn around, 3 days later and play on the road at Baylor. For Baylor, they just played TCU, and they played them actually pretty tough. They came up short. The thing about the TCU game helps set them up for this one. TCU's big on penetration and kicking it back out. That's what Iowa State does very well. So now seeing the same type of offense 2 games in a row, I think is going to be an advantage for Baylor. Now, if Iowa State wouldn't have won on Saturday, I could have said it's also a look-ahead spot because Baylor has Kansas on deck. But the fact that Kansas is on deck and just got beat by who they're playing tonight, they're not looking past Iowa State. I think this is a great spot for the home dog. I like Baylor. I think they pull what we can call a mild upset tonight.
I really like this Iowa State team. If they get all their bodies on the floor at once, they're a dangerous basketball team. Could make a serious run come March Madness. But you're right, the spot is not favorable for them.
If they play Baylor 10 times, they might beat Baylor 7 or 8 of the 10. But this is one of those spots where it's just not good for them.
In the NBA, the Minnesota Timberwolves have a coaching change. Tibbs is out. I think this had become inevitable. It just wasn't working. When Tibbs took the job, look, the thought was, boy, you've got some good young talent there. They're going to get better. You bring in a coach with his defensive expertise coming out of the Bulls system where he was basically the guy who designed the defense. This can't help but be successful. But the pieces never came together. I think there were some chemistry issues that weren't really Thibodeau's creation. That was the front office bringing in the wrong guys. But the bottom line is the team didn't respond to Thibodeau, and it wasn't going to get any better. So they made a change. We'll see what happens. They have the Thunder as their opponent tonight. And I always like to see what teams do when this coaching change stuff takes place, because sometimes you get spurts out of a team for a few weeks before they go back to regress to their norm, if you will.
Well, I think you're going to get that spark, and you better get that spark, because think about it, Dave. Jimmy Butler, he was a problem. He was a cancer.
He's becoming a problem everywhere he goes.
Cancer in the clubhouse. They cut him, got rid of him, or traded him, so got rid of that problem. Now they actually won. They have a winning record since they got rid of Jimmy Butler, but they get rid of Coach Tibbs. So who's left to blame? You better perform if you're a player on this team.
Look, I think it's the front office for maybe not putting together the right mix with that particular coach. He's kind of an old school coach to me. I don't know if that kind of coaching works in the NBA anymore.
Other than Pop.
Who has an undeniable track record.
Yeah.
So he can get away with it. In most NBA locations, in my opinion, the players are running the show. So you're going to get a coach who he'll be in line with the way the players think, and I don't know if that's good or not.
The one guy that was playing extremely well won't be in the lineup tonight. Derrick Rose, he resurrected his career this year under Tibbs. And,
although he did have a rather rude remark to say to some of his non-fans, if you will, which I don't care about. Here comes the standard apology. Okay.
Yeah. I saw
he
that.
Didn't literally mean it. Okay.
You can't say do it today
anymore.
I know. Me and you could get in a lot of trouble if we round the clock back
kidding?
10 years ago. Things we would say.
I'm still on the fringe on a daily basis. Let me tell you.
But I got Minnesota here, Dave. Make it short here. I'll tell you this much: you've got Oklahoma City off an upset loss as a home favorite, and this is an odd one. This is a league-wide stat. Teams off an upset loss playing on Tuesday night in their favorite. They are just going against them 46-19 last 5 seasons. That's a league-wide trend.
The Golden Knights are at home tonight.
Big number.
Ooh, big number, because the Rangers really stink right now. I mean, the Rangers are really going bad. They overachieved early. This was supposed to be a complete rebuild for the Rangers this year, and it's like, what the hell is going on with this team? Because they were winning their home games. Now they're not winning any place. And the Golden Knights have to make sure they don't take the game for granted. And assuming that's the case, they should get out, take care of business, and pick up 2 points.
They should. And I've seen this number, Dave, anywhere from minus 270 to I saw one house actually at minus 300.
Wow.
Here in town.
That's a lot. So that means you're even minus on the puck line.
Yeah, and the puck line's the only way you look to play this one. And the good news,
maybe go alternate puck line if you want to avoid. Really? I mean, take a chance that they go out and win a 5-2 game.
Well, you know what? This is a team that has not been scoring at all. The Rangers have, I think, 5 goals in their last 4 games.
And the Golden Knights aren't giving up anything.
No, they're not. And here's one for you: the Rangers last 2 seasons, Dave. This is putrid. They are just 3-21. In road games following a loss by 2 goals or more.
I really like negative stats on New York teams. I'm wearing the Red Sox jacket, so you know where I am.
Boston homer.
Jeff Sherman is with us. Jeff Sherman was updating numbers during the game last night on college football futures. Jeff, I've never seen that before. In game, we had a change in favorites for the 2020 national championship.
Yeah, in-game wagering for future odds there. And we just got these up yesterday in the afternoon. And, obviously with Alabama being the 5.5-point favorite, we had them favored as next year's champion. And then as we saw developments on the field and money coming across the counter, we quickly made some adjustments. And we had Alabama open at 3-2 favorite, Clemson at 7-2. At one point I went Alabama 2-1 and Clemson 5-2. Took some money on Clemson. And now we currently have Clemson 9-5 with Alabama 5-2.
Wow. And I'll tell you what, you might get some takers at that price on Clemson with these 2 guys, especially Lawrence coming back along with Ross, who's going to be, that's just going to be one of the great pass-catch combinations that you would ever want to see in college football. And they're playing in a conference that doesn't offer that much resistance. It's kind of tough to see Clemson not back in the playoffs next year. So if you look at it from that standpoint,